All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to break down one of the most spectacular failures in the history of business. Seriously, it's a story that has everything: ambition, ego, and a price tag so massive it's hard to even wrap your head around. And that's the big question, isn't it? How does a deal that was supposed to represent the future of, well, everything, media, technology, the internet, how does it go so wrong so unbelievably fast? The answer is a huge cautionary tale, and it's just as relevant today as it was then. So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the incredible hype around the deal of the century. Then, we'll dive straight into the messy, inevitable clash of cultures. After that, we'll watch the whole foundation crumble when the bubble bursts. Then, we'll expose the empty promise of synergy. And finally, we'll look at the lasting legacy of this whole disaster. Okay, let's get into it. Section 1, the deal of the century. And you have to understand, this wasn't just seen as a merger. The story was that an internet upstart was literally buying a media empire. The new kid was buying the whole block. I need you to picture this. It's the year 2000. The internet feels like magic. The dot-com bubble is at its absolute dizzying peak. And the feeling in the air isn't just optimism, it's this belief that anything is possible. It was a complete frenzy. And this whole frenzy was happening inside what we now call the dot-com bubble. Basically, people were throwing insane amounts of money at any company that had a .com in its name. Their stock prices shot to the moon, often without any real profits to back them up. And sitting on top of this whole mountain, you guessed it, America Online, AOL. Which brings us to this number, $164 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. That was the price tag an internet company whose stock was fueled by pure hype was buying Time Warner. We're talking CNN, HBO, Warner Bros. Studios, the establishment. It was absolutely unheard of. And this quote from AOL's CEO at the time, Steve Case, it just captures the moment perfectly. They honestly believed they weren't just merging companies. No, they were launching the new century. I mean, looking back, the level of hubris is just off the charts. But almost right away, that grand vision smacked right into a very human wall. And that brings us to Section 2, a clash of cultures. You know, when you really look at it, these two companies might as well have been from different planets. You had AOL, fast, aggressive, a jeans and t-shirts kind of place that was all about growth, growth, growth. Then you had Time Warner, suits, boardrooms, methodical, and very protective of their decades-old legacy brands. So the key thing here is that this wasn't a business problem, it was a culture war waiting to happen. The AOL folks saw the Time Warner execs as dinosaurs who were too slow for the internet. And the Time Warner people? They saw the AOL crew as these arrogant upstarts who just didn't get what it took to create high-quality content. And while they were busy fighting with each other inside, a storm was brewing on the outside that was about to expose every single crack in this deal. This takes us right to Section 3, the bubble burst. The timing here, you just can't make this up. It is absolutely brutal. They announced the deal in January 2000, at the very, very peak of the market. Just 2 months later, the dot-com crash kicks off. Tech stocks start bleeding value everywhere. By the time the deal is even finalized a year later, the world is a completely different place. And this gets to the heart of the problem. AOL's huge valuation, it wasn't built on real profits. It was built on the promise of future internet advertising. So when the bubble popped, all those dot-coms that were paying AOL for ads went bankrupt. And that ad money, it just evaporated almost overnight. The engine of AOL's value just seized. And the result of all this was this number, a loss of $99 billion in a single year. It was one of the largest corporate losses ever recorded. It was the company having to publicly admit, yeah, we paid a fantasy price for something and it all collapsed. So, with a culture war raging and the market in total freefall, what happened to that brilliant business plan that was supposed to make it all worthwhile? Well, let's talk about Section 4, the myth of synergy. Synergy is the magic word you hear in pretty much every big merger. It's the whole idea that 1 + 1 = 3, that by putting these two companies together, you'll create something way more valuable than either one could be on its own. And you got to admit, on paper, the ideas looked incredible. Sell Time magazine subscriptions to millions of AOL users? Check. Promote the next huge Warner Bros. Movie on the AOL homepage? Of course. It seemed like the perfect marriage of amazing content and a massive distribution network. But it just never happened. And why not? Because of those turf wars. The Time Warner execs refused to cheapen their prestigious brands by splashing them all over what they saw as this tacky internet portal. And the AOL sales team couldn't get the old school execs to cooperate on anything. So all those brilliant ideas on the PowerPoint slide, they were totally dead on arrival. Which brings us to our final section, the legacy of a failure. What can we actually learn from picking through the wreckage of this deal? So, what are the timeless lessons here? First, a big one. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Your plan doesn't matter if your people hate each other. Second, betting your entire company on a speculative market bubble is probably a bad idea. Third, synergy is just a buzzword if real people aren't willing to actually cooperate. And finally, if you overpay for something, you've probably already lost before you've even started. Ultimately, its legacy is simple. This deal became the textbook example, the case study taught in every business school around the world of how not to do a merger. It is the gold standard for corporate failure. And that leaves us with one final, kind of chilling thought. When you look at today's world, with all the hype around AI and tech giants making these massive multi-billion-dollar deals, you have to wonder, have we really learned the lessons from AOL Time Warner? Or is history just waiting for a chance to repeat itself?